Okay, welcome to another Orbiter 2010 video, and this video is just a follow-up, a bit of a bonus segment for my Mars to Venus sling over to Earth video that I just did. In this scenario, I'm picking up here at Earth right before reaching the atmosphere. You can see I'm at about 600 kilometers. I've got the simulation paused. In the last video that I did, where I was coming up to Earth, when I was still several thousand seconds away from Earth, I went retrograde and bled off a little over 2,000 meters per second worth of velocity. If you look at this scenario, you can see that I've got 43%, 43.2% of main fuel left, and this is exactly how much fuel I had before I did that main engine braking burn. So in other words, in this scenario, I haven't bled off any velocity whatsoever. I'm coming into Earth at the maximum speed. What I was doing was trying different approaches at Earth after recording that series to see what I could get away with. You know, I started by bleeding off like 1,500 meters per second, then 1,000, then 500. And eventually I just wanted to see if it was possible to do the braking burn, or rather to do the atmospheric braking without bleeding off any velocity at all. And after a bunch of attempts, I eventually determined that it just wasn't possible. But then I, was persistent. I kept at it, and I tried something that I think might work. This might take me a couple of tries to get it right, but we'll see how it goes. What I found was that at this velocity, it's just barely possible to survive if you get rid of all the mass that you can get rid of. Get rid of all the main engine fuel, get rid of some RCS, get rid of some APU, and since we're going to land here in just a couple of hours, we can get rid of all the locks except for maybe 2 hours or so. By doing that, I found that I can slip into the atmosphere even at that extreme velocity, but it's difficult to do and it may take me a couple of tries, so let's give it a shot. I've got to work quickly because unfortunately I probably should have saved this scenario when I was a bit farther out, because as soon as I unpause, I've only got a few seconds to get rid of the resources before I'm going to hit the atmosphere. So here we go. Unpausing, turn the APU on, and I need to get rid of some blocks. Get rid of some main fuel. I'm going to get rid of all the main fuel because we can do a dead stick landing. Get rid of some RCS and get rid of some APU. Now I'm going to warp time ahead a little bit. And we'll keep 40% of APU. And we'll keep 20% RCS. And we got rid of all the main fuel. And we just need a couple of hours here. That's good enough. Now let's get our vessel in position. Hopefully I can get this on the first try. Once we get down to about 120 kilometers, then I can turn off RCS
information
mode.
APU running.
I'm going to turn it off now. So now we're just using surface controls. And obviously I'm not going to be able to show the external camera because I need all my concentration right here. It is a very, very, very narrow window. So what we've got to do is keep the vessel pointed at the velocity vector. Oh my gosh, my surface controls are off. That may have actually cost me the mission right there, not having the surface controls on.
Warning, hull temperature. Warning, airframe overheating.
By not having the surface controls on, I dipped down too low. So let me run through that again.
All systems
Okay, getting rid of all the main fuel.
Warning.
Getting rid of a lot of the locks.
Warning.
RCS. And APU.
Locks information. Warning. Locks information.
Good enough. Good enough.
Warning, main fuel depleted. Warning, system reset. Warning, locks dump. System reset. Warning, locks dump.
And there we go. Let's try this again. Surface controls are on. Okay, so as I was saying, we basically need to keep the vessel pointed straight at the velocity vector until we hit the atmosphere. And that will just make sure that we don't have too much vertical speed, into the negative. And we can go ahead and turn that off for now. And what I'm keeping an eye on, in addition to the velocity vector, is the altitude. I wanted the altitude and the vertical speed. When the vertical speed drops down below about 200 meters per second negative, then I immediately need to start kind of pulling up so that I'm pulling myself back into the atmosphere, otherwise I'll skip out. So I'm just keeping myself right here for now, trying to decrease the vertical speed. And I need to slip into this window right around 72 kilometers. Okay, right about here.
Warning, hull temperature.
Now I've got to let the nose settle into the atmosphere a little bit. Now I've got to keep the vertical speed from going positive. Okay, we just need to ride through this part of the atmosphere for a while. And ideally I would like to keep the vertical speed at basically negative 0.1. Like right, it's pretty tricky because it's pretty sensitive. Just like right around this number. There we go, right there, that's perfect. If I can hold it there for a while, then you can see we're decelerating. We've lost several hundred meters per second. And that's it, we got it. We just have to hold. So it is possible to come back to Earth with that extreme velocity and still use the atmosphere. Now, I would never do it this way, just for the fact that it's so ridiculously difficult. And if you've got the fuel, there's absolutely no reason to take this risk. But if you came back to Earth and you were completely out of fuel, good to know that you could do this. So you can see we're down to 14.5 kilometers per second. And that's basically it. You can see we're in the green, so we're not overheating. So it's just a matter of holding yourself right here, you know, at negative 0.5 or, you know, negative 1 meter per second, something like that. You just can't let it go positive. If it goes to, you know, 10, 20 meters per second positive, you'll quickly reach a point where you're too high in the atmosphere to get any grab, and you'll skip out. And you've got to hold this state for quite a while, because you can see our eccentricity is, you know, very far out, you know, 2.4, so it's going to be a while before we're even captured. Now we're down to 14 kilometers per second. What I'll do is I'll just continue this until we're down to 13.5, because that's the altitude that, or rather that's the velocity that I approached Earth at before when I did the retrograde braking burn. But we are in a crunch here because, you know, we've got to land, and we can't mess up our landing at all because we don't have any main fuel to go around, or, you know, to pass the base or anything. But that part's not a big deal. After you've done a few dead stick landings, it's not that hard at all, actually. Okay, so you get the idea. There we are. We're down to 13.75. And obviously we're just going to keep, you know, losing velocity from here. We're in the green, so there's no risk of burning up. And we just have to hold ourselves right here. Let me pause. So that's the end of this video. If you have any questions about what I did, or if you thought it was cool, go ahead and leave a comment down below, and I'll see you next time.